Amid the wide-open fields of America's Heartland, retired Army veteran Sam Hawkins was about to show a ruthless biker gang why you never corner a soldier who's been through hell and back. When the Iron Serpents roared into a quiet truck stop, they believed they could push around whoever they pleased, until they met a man with scars that told a story of battles far more dangerous than any highway showdown. What began as a petty shakedown over unpaid debts would unravel a criminal network, leading to an explosive confrontation that would unite a small community and change one man's life forever. The late afternoon sun poured gold across the endless stretch of highway as Sam eased his old pickup into the parking lot of Carol's truck stop and diner. The worn neon sign flickered against the fading light. To anyone else, it might have been a place to fill up on gas and coffee. But Sam recognized these roads as home to all kinds: drifters, truckers, and trouble. It was in these dusty spaces that a quiet war veteran hoped to find solace, not another battlefield. Yet fate had other plans. Under the din of country music leaking through the diner's door, a threat was waiting. The Iron Serpents, a gang that thrived on fear, had rolled in, their chrome bikes glinting like teeth under a wolfish grin. They didn't know Sam's past or how lethal an ex-soldier could be when backed into a corner. They only saw a tired-looking man limping his way into a seat at the counter. Sometimes destiny unfolds in the most unremarkable places. And by the time night fell, those bikes would tear down the highway, carrying vengeance that would test Sam's resolve, ignite a standoff on a peaceful ranch, and remind everyone why you never pick a fight with the wrong veteran. Quick pause before we continue. Please tell us where you are watching from. Don't forget to subscribe, cause tomorrow's story is mind-blowing. The engine of the old, battered pickup roared in the distance, the Midwestern sun beating down on the lonely highway that cut through endless fields of wheat and corn. Heat shimmered on the asphalt as Sam Hawkins, an Army veteran in his mid-40s, guided his truck down Interstate 70. He'd served multiple tours both in Afghanistan and Iraq until shrapnel tore up his left leg enough to earn him an honorable discharge. Now, a faded eagle tattoo stretched across his right forearm and a thick scar ran from his brow to his temple. Though retired, everything about Sam seemed coiled like a tension wire wound, too tight, ready to spring when threatened. In the seat beside him lay his old duffel bag containing a scattering of clothes, mementos from his time in the service, and a well-worn copy of the U.S. Army Field Manual. Beneath that, hidden away from casual view, was a small black box with silver corners. Anyone else might assume it was a toolkit, but Sam had carefully stored his .45 revolver there. He carried it more for the sense of security than the threat of ever needing to use it. After all, the war was over, or so he tried to tell himself. Sometimes, though, the nightmares came roaring back, unbidden, jolting him upright with memories of muzzle flashes and explosions echoing in his ears. The stretch of highway was monotonous, occasionally interrupted by large rigs or classic cruisers. Early evening approached and Sam's stomach rumbled in protest. He'd been driving for hours, leaving behind the memory of a job interview that hadn't gone as planned. Money was tight. His savings were running thinner every month. Somehow he hoped to land a job or find a stable place to settle, something that might offer a sense of normalcy. He shifted in his seat, eyes scanning the horizon for a place to stop. A crumpled paper in the passenger seat reminded him of a lonely ranch out west that was rumored to be hiring stable hands. Maybe that was his next move. But first, he needed dinner. The sign for Carol's Truck Stop and Diner, Exit 23, emerged to his right, battered but promising coffee and a hot meal. Sam flicked on his turn signal and guided the old truck down the exit ramp. He tried to ignore the twinge of pain in his left leg as he braked. Carol's place wasn't fancy. It was the kind of low-roofed building that drew in truckers at all hours, the flickering neon sign promising open 24 hours in tall letters. The lot outside was large enough for semis, pickups, and the occasional bus. A line of motorcycles was parked near the side entrance, shiny chrome, wide handlebars, and black leather seats. They looked pristine and well cared for. Sam's eyes lingered on them for a moment. Biker group, he thought. Possibly local. Possibly passing through. He didn't give it much further thought until he pulled into a spot a few slots away, turning off the ignition. When Sam stepped out, the heat struck him in a wave. He grimaced, gently stretching his bad leg. The diner's screen door was propped open by a wedge of splintering wood. Inside, the smell of frying bacon and fresh coffee hit him immediately. The place was half full, couples, a few solo truckers, and a group of bikers at the far corner booth. Their leather vests bore the patches of a local club, an iron cross, a stylized skull with wings. They were rowdy, laughing and joking with each other, but not causing any visible trouble. Sam's gaze slid off them as soon as he felt them look his way. He was used to letting others keep to their own business. He walked to an open seat at the counter. The waitress, a frazzled woman in her 50s, hustled over. Her name tag read Darla, and her kindly but tired face lit up when she saw Sam. "Coffee, honey?" she asked, already pouring the dark liquid into a chipped mug. "Yes, please." "And the chicken fried steak special," Sam replied, voice low and polite. He didn't have much money, but a hot meal was worth the splurge. "You got it," she said with a nod. She gave him a once-over, likely noticing the limp or the faint scar. With that, Sam settled onto the stool, his shoulders relaxing a fraction. Despite the slight tension that always permeated his posture, he had learned to find small comforts in the ordinary: the hum of the overhead lights, the sizzling of a grill, the background murmur of idle chatter. Outside, the sun was drifting toward the horizon, painting the edges of the diner's windows in a golden hue. He sipped his coffee slowly. Across the diner, the group of bikers grew noisier. There were 5 of them. A tall, lanky guy with a blonde goatee seemed to be in charge, wearing a vest that displayed some officer rank patch Sam didn't recognize. The others cackled at some joke he made. One of them, shorter but broad-shouldered, banged a fist on the table for emphasis. Sam didn't pay them more attention than that. If they weren't messing with him, he certainly wasn't going to start anything. He'd learned better than that long ago. The best way to avoid trouble was to stay out of it. But trouble had a way of finding Sam. It always did. He was halfway through the chicken fried steak, methodically scooping gravy and mashed potatoes together when the door to the diner slammed open. A teenage boy, couldn't have been more than 18, rushed inside, glancing over his shoulder as though expecting the devil himself to burst in behind him. The kid was dressed in threadbare jeans and a too large jacket. He looked winded and frightened. He locked onto Sam, probably because he was the closest one to the door, but then he rushed toward the counter and slid onto the stool next to him. "Please," the boy whispered, voice shaking. "Can I use your phone? There's guys out there." Sam frowned. Darla hurried over. She placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder, but the fear in the boy's eyes was unmistakable. As Sam turned slightly, he saw out the window a small group of men, unmistakably from the same biker club, lurking near the parking lot. They had evidently followed the boy, though they stood out of direct sight from most of the diner's patrons. Sam's pulse quickened. "Kid, what's your name?" Sam asked in a quiet voice. The boy swallowed hard. "Lenny." "What's going on, Lenny?" Before the boy could answer, the door swung open again, this time more gently. In walked the tall, blond man with the goatee, the same one who had been in the booth. He let his gaze sweep the diner before settling on Lenny, a slow grin stretching across his face. Sam's muscles tensed involuntarily. The man removed his sunglasses, hooking them on the front of his vest, and strode forward. "Ah, there you are," the biker drawled. "You forgot something, Lenny. Like the rest of the money you owe us." His voice was confident, carrying easily over the low chatter of the diner. The other patrons grew quiet. Darla looked uneasy, but she was clearly used to rowdy truckers or traveling bikers making a scene. She glanced toward the door to the kitchen, where a burly cook was peering out. I don't owe you more," Lenny stammered. "I paid. I swear I paid." The biker rolled his eyes, leaning on the counter. He pretended to examine the menu, tapping the laminated page with a ringed finger. "Interest, boy. You think these things come free? Now get out here so we can settle up." Sam let out a quiet sigh and carefully turned. He didn't want trouble, but even more, he didn't want to see a kid roughed up by a gang. Something in the biker's tone held the promise of violence. The tension made Sam's stomach churn. He took a slow breath and studied the man. Beneath the goatee and casual posture was a coiled readiness akin to a predator. "Look," Sam said calmly, "he's just a kid. Let him pay you tomorrow or let him make it right when he can. No need to push him around. The biker's gaze slid to Sam. A flicker of amusement danced across his features. And who might you be? The kid's father. No, Sam said simply. Just a guy asking for a little courtesy. Across the diner, the other bikers were watching. The tension was electric, snapping at the edges of the room's silence. A few truckers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, hesitant to get involved. The blonde biker gave Sam an openly mocking once-over. You look like you've seen better days, friend. Don't push it. He flicked the menu onto the counter with a scoff. Stay out of business that ain't yours or you'll regret it. Sam could feel his heartbeat in his temples, that old adrenaline from combat readiness flaring up. His gaze flickered between the blonde man and Lenny. The kid looked like he was about to cry, eyes darting around the diner for some kind of salvation. Sam had a choice: turn away and let the kid face whatever was waiting outside, or step in and risk turning this whole situation into an all-out confrontation. He recalled how, in a dusty village in Afghanistan, he'd once confronted a group of bullies threatening a young local boy. The memory of that day lingered in him, shaping a sense of obligation, like once you start helping, you can't let it go half-finished. He let out a slow, measured breath and faced the biker again. You and I both know that if someone truly owes money, there are ways to get it. Picking a fight with a kid in a diner isn't one of them. Oh, a righteous man, the biker chuckled. Well, righteous man, you're meddling where you shouldn't. If you want to pay up for him, be my guest. Sam pressed his lips together. His wallet was thin, but he wasn't about to let the boy get beaten up. How much? He asked, voice curt. The biker's eyes glinted triumphantly. 850 plus interest. Let's say 200. Sam clenched his jaw. That was almost all he had on him. 200's a lot. It's a lot of trouble, too, the biker said, leaning closer. His breath stank of cigarettes and cheap whiskey. Maybe more if you keep flapping your mouth. Sam bristled. I don't want trouble. Me neither, the biker said. Just my money. Reluctantly, Sam pulled out his wallet. Lenny turned to him, face full of guilt and desperation. Don't. I can figure this out. You don't have to, eh? Sam held up a hand, quieting the boy. He thumbed through the wad of small bills, ignoring the sting of seeing them vanish. He placed 2 crisp $100 bills on the counter. All right, he said, there's your money. Now leave him alone. The blond man's grin widened. He took the money in one quick motion, folding it into his pocket. I appreciate your generosity, old man. His gaze flickered to Sam's scar. But you best learn not to get in over your head next time. Sam said nothing, just turned slightly on the stool so his body was between Lenny and the biker. The diner remained silent. All eyes watched for the next move. The biker, not seeing a reason to escalate further, smirked and gave a nod toward his buddies. They rose, tossed some crumpled bills for their meals onto the table, and swaggered out. The blonde lingered a moment, leveling Sam with a look that seemed to say, this isn't over. Then he turned on his heel and disappeared out the door. The moment they were gone, the hush broke. Murmurs traveled through the handful of patrons. The cook wandered out, wiping his hands on a towel, looking relieved that he didn't have to wade into a fight. Darla patted Sam's shoulder. You okay? That was mighty brave, hon. Sam forced a smile and nodded. I'm good. Lenny's face was a mix of gratitude and shame. Thank you, he said, voice trembling. I only borrowed a little bit from them, didn't know they'd charge that kind of interest. I didn't mean to get you involved. Sam exhaled, a heavy weight in his chest. Be more careful about who you borrow money from, kid. These guys don't play by nice rules. They're sharks. Lenny's cheeks flamed with embarrassment. I know. And now you've lost $200. I don't know how to repay you. Sam looked at his now cold chicken fried steak and shrugged. We'll figure it out. It's better than letting them jump you. They might have done worse than just taking your last few dollars. Darla came around with a slice of pie, setting it in front of Sam. On the house, sugar, she said softly, and then shot a sympathetic look toward Lenny. We don't like trouble around here, but those bikers have been around more lately. They call themselves the Iron Serpents. Local rumor is they're running guns or drugs, but nobody can prove it. Sam nodded, absorbing the information. They seem organized enough. He noticed Lenny looking anxiously toward the window. The boy was probably worried that the bikers might still be out there. Sam's instincts told him they'd left for now, but there was a good chance they'd be waiting at some other spot on the road. Sometimes these clubs had a code about being repaid for perceived slights. He rubbed his temple and found himself thinking, why me? But in his gut, he already knew the answer. Because that's who he was, a soldier who once made a vow to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, even if it cost him something. After finishing his pie in silence, Sam waited a while. He spotted the teenage boy picking at a piece of cornbread Darla had given him. Eventually, Lenny worked up the courage to say, I need to get home. My mom's probably worried sick. I was gonna take the bus, but my wallet. His eyes dropped and a deeper shame colored his expression. I lost it in that scuffle. Sam took out a few crumpled bills left from his wallet. I can lend you enough to get a bus ticket. Or if you're not too far from my route, I can give you a ride. A sliver of relief worked its way onto the kid's face. If you don't mind, I'd really appreciate a ride. I live in Willow's Bend, just a few miles off the next exit. Sam nodded, thinking it was better to make sure the kid got home safely than risk him walking into another ambush. Finish up. We'll get going. Lenny nodded, biting back tears. It was clear the day's events had weighed heavily on him. Sam understood the feeling all too well, the sudden swirl of danger and helplessness that left a person shaken. The memory of those swirling emotions from war zones flickered in Sam's mind. He settled up for the meal, and Darla discreetly slid the check away, indicating he only had to pay for the main course and coffee. The slice of pie was free, as was a sense of gratitude from the diner staff. The few other patrons watched Sam and Lenny go, likely thankful the tension had dissolved before it turned into flying fists or bullets. Outside, the air was cooler than before but still carried a lingering heat. The biker gang had vanished, at least for the moment. Sam gave the parking lot a quick once-over before gesturing for Lenny to get into his pickup. The older vehicle coughed a bit when Sam turned the key in the ignition, but it started on the second try. A wave of relief washed over Lenny as he settled in, trying to steady his breathing. They pulled out onto the main road. The glow of the diner's sign receded behind them, swallowed by the gathering night. Streetlights were sparse, and Sam flicked on his headlights, scanning the darkness. His shoulders felt tense, his gut telling him there was more to come. The Iron Serpents didn't seem like the type to let a man off so easily after he'd inserted himself into their affairs, especially the one with the goatee who'd left with that ominous smirk. Thank you, Lenny said again, his voice a little stronger now. Seriously, you didn't have to do that. Sam nodded, eyes on the road. I know. A beat passed. But I wasn't going to sit there and let them push you around. Lenny looked down at his hands. I just wanted to help my mom. She's sick and the medical bills are piling up. Dad's long gone, so I'm trying to pick up shifts wherever I can. We fell behind on rent and I got desperate. Sam's heart twinged. I get it. Desperate times. Next time, just find a safer route, okay? The kid nodded vigorously. Yeah, I will. They drove in companionable silence for a few minutes, the truck's radio murmuring classic rock that barely registered in the background. The truck stop and diner vanished entirely behind them as farmland stretched out on either side. A canopy of stars was emerging overhead. They're not gonna forget you, are they? Lenny asked quietly, glancing at Sam. Sam, hands steady on the wheel, let the question linger. Probably not. But let's hope they find someone else to hassle. I'm sorry, Lenny said, his voice heavy. Sam offered a small shrug. I've dealt with trouble before. They took an exit labeled Willow's Bend. The off-ramp led to a narrow, two-lane road dotted with streetlights that flickered. A sense of seclusion settled over them, broken only by the chirping of crickets or the rustle of distant cornfields. Lenny directed Sam down a side road where a scattering of small houses and trailers perched in the darkness. That's my place, Lenny said, pointing to a worn trailer home at the end of a gravel path. A single porch light glowed weakly. Sam pulled in, the gravel crunching under the truck's tires. You safe here? Lenny nodded slowly. Yeah, this is my aunt's place. My mom's inside too. She's resting. Sam turned off the truck. He reached into the back to fish around his duffel. The .45 was there, but he left it untouched. He rummaged for a moment until he found a slip of paper. He jotted down his cell phone number. If you ever find yourself in a pinch, call me. The kid's eyes glistened with gratitude. Thank you, Sam. I'll pay you back. I promise. Sam gave a half smile. Worry about your mom first. With that, Lenny slipped out of the passenger seat. He raised a hand in farewell, softly closing the door to avoid waking anyone. Sam watched the kid limp slightly, a subtle sign of stress or leftover pain, but at least he was home. Safe. Sam sighed and backed out of the driveway, the trailer's lone light shrinking behind him until it was swallowed by the dark. He didn't relish the idea of tangling with a biker gang. Once he'd have been the first to leap into a fight, back when he was fresh out of basic training, full of bravado and adrenaline. That had changed. War, injuries, losing friends, it weighed on him. Now he saw quiet, calm days, but life rarely seemed to give him what he wanted. By the time he got back onto the highway, his mind was churning. He debated whether to keep driving through the night or find a motel. His leg throbbed, a dull ache that crept up from his calf to his hip. Weariness clung to him like a second skin. Perhaps a cheap roadside motel was best. He drove another 10 miles before spotting a faded sign advertising the Sunnyvale Motor in vacancy. The building itself was nondescript, a row of doors facing the lot, flickering fluorescent lights overhead. He pulled in, took a room, and made his way inside. It was small, with a worn carpet and a musty odor, but it had a bed and a lock on the door. Sam tossed his duffel onto the lone chair, eyeing the battered nightstand. After a quick shower, he threw on a clean t-shirt and dropped onto the mattress, a faint squeak echoing beneath him. Despite his fatigue, his mind refused to quiet. He thought about the blonde biker's smug grin, the hush that fell over the diner, and that ominous hint that this was far from over. Eventually, exhaustion took over and Sam's eyes drifted shut. Nightmares danced at the edges of his slumber, memories of dusty foreign roads, the roar of explosions, the desperate cries of comrades pinned down. His breath caught in his throat more than once, heart pounding through waves of half-remembered horrors. Such nights were nothing new to him. They were part of the price he paid for surviving what others hadn't. He awoke well before sunrise, the gloom outside his window tinted faintly by the early hints of dawn. With a groan, he sat up, rubbing his eyes. He thought about hitting the road early, maybe making headway toward that ranch job. But something in his gut gnawed at him, a sense that trouble might bubble up sooner than he wanted. He pulled his .45 from its case, checked it, then returned it to the black box. He wasn't looking for a shootout, but he wasn't naive either. After packing his few belongings, he checked out, got into his pickup, and turned the key. The engine rumbled. He paused, letting it idle, scanning the parking lot in the faint morning light. No suspicious vehicles. No bikes. He exhaled and pulled back onto the highway, heading west. He'd gone only 2 miles when the glint of headlights appeared in his rearview mirror, multiple pairs in tight formation. Motorcycles? His heart lurched. He steadied his breathing, hoping they were just random riders on an early morning run. But the taillights were distinctive. One sped up, coming alongside. Sam glanced to his left and his stomach dropped. It was the blonde goatee. They'd found him. A second bike pulled in front, slowing down in a blatant attempt to force Sam to reduce speed. Another roared up to Sam's passenger side. There were 4 of them total. Where's the 5th from the diner? Sam wondered. Possibly behind or waiting somewhere else. Instinctively, Sam's hands tightened on the wheel. They were hurting him. He eyed the open stretch of highway. No immediate exits. A sign indicating a rest area in 6 miles. The creeping sensation of dread slid up his spine. He considered gunning the gas, but the front bike was weaving erratically, making it dangerous to accelerate. One wrong move and Sam could clip the bike, leading to a high-speed crash. That was the last thing he wanted. So he slowed, scanning desperately for any place to turn or any chance to break free. The road remained silent and empty. The biker on the driver's side signaled to Sam with a slicing motion across his throat. Sam could almost hear the mocking laughter. The tension rose, his mind slipping into a calm but alert state, a vestige of combat training that told him to remain steady, keep thinking. For now, they were just intimidating him, but they wouldn't hesitate to escalate if cornered. The front bike veered onto the right shoulder, forcing Sam's truck to slow further. The one at his rear drew closer, about to box him in. Sam's jaw tightened. He realized they wanted him to pull over. And if he did, that was it, there'd be no one else around. No witnesses. For men against one. Even with his .45, the odds were ugly. His training hammered in the back of his mind, never let the enemy set the terms of engagement. He tightened his grip on the wheel. The front biker slowed to a near crawl, forcing Sam to stomp on his brakes to avoid rear-ending the motorcycle. Gravel spat from under the truck's tires. The second bike crept up on the passenger side. The third, behind him, blocked any retreat. Sam's eyes flicked to the left, a ditch. No time to maneuver there safely. The tension crackled. He caught a glimpse of the blonde goatee turning to yell something to the biker behind him. This was a coordinated maneuver. Sam's heart thrummed, but he forced down the fear. That old soldier's clarity took hold. He couldn't fight them effectively in a standstill on the side of the road. But he needed to do something unexpected, break their pattern. A plan sparked in his mind. As the front biker slowed to a near stop, Sam jerked the steering wheel hard left and then right again, stepping on the gas in a short, violent spurt. His truck kicked up a spray of gravel, and in that heartbeat, the biker in front wobbled, nearly losing control. It was enough of a gap for Sam to dart diagonally back onto the road. The engine roared in protest, the tires squealing as they found traction on the asphalt. The bikers, momentarily stunned, scrambled to pursue. Sam's heart hammered, but he felt a surge of adrenaline. He'd broken their box formation. The open stretch of highway beckoned. He floored it, the old pickup bucking like a horse with a new rider. The bikers accelerated, their engines roaring behind him. This was going to be a chase. And Sam, with an injured leg and an older truck, wasn't sure how long he could keep them at bay. Clutching the steering wheel, he aimed for the upcoming rest area sign. Maybe, just maybe, he'd find a witness or two there. Or at least enough people around that the bikers would think twice about jumping him in public. The headlights in his rearview mirror were relentless, edging closer. The sun was just beginning to crest the horizon, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, an ironic beauty overshadowing the danger. Sam grit his teeth, foot pressed against the pedal. So much for a quiet drive, he thought bitterly. Still, he refused to yield. If this was how it would be, he'd face it on his terms. With a glimpse of the rest area's turnoff only half a mile ahead, Sam made his decision. If he could just reach that lot, maybe others would be around, families, truckers, tourists. Enough to disrupt the gang's ambush. Because from what Sam could tell, the Iron Serpents wanted him alone, vulnerable, and cornered. The bikes roared behind him, closing the distance. Sam gripped the wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. Wind whipped through the open window. His leg ached. Fear and determination intermingled, forging a steely resolve inside him. If it came to a fight, he'd fight. He'd done it before, and he could do it again. But he'd do his damnedest to avoid open bloodshed on the side of the road. At last, he spotted the sign for the rest stop. A wide ramp curved off the highway, leading to a cluster of bathrooms, vending machines, and a scattering of parked cars. Adrenaline pumping, Sam swerved onto the ramp. The bikers behind him hesitated for a moment, some sped up as though to shoot past the exit, then realized Sam was turning and followed. Sam guided the truck into the rest area lot, scanning for a group of people. There were a few cars, an RV, and a big rig. Enough that they couldn't simply jump him in front of everyone, he hoped. He brought the truck to an abrupt stop near the vending machines. Throwing the gear into park, Sam reached under the seat and felt for the black box. Before he could fully decide whether to brandish the firearm, the motorcycle skidded in behind him, engines growling. The blonde goatee hopped off, glaring daggers. A few onlookers, bleary-eyed from long journeys, turned to watch. Sam knew that if the bikers wanted to make a statement, they might do it even with an audience. So he prepared himself. The blonde man took off his helmet and stalked forward, pointing at Sam through the windshield, fury etched in his features. Sam met his gaze, unflinching. The man was about to speak or shout when a family of tourists carrying maps and coffee cups emerged from the restroom block, eyeing the scene nervously. They stood not 15 feet away. A crackling pause hovered. Not here, Sam realized. They won't want the attention. Indeed, the blonde biker's hand twitched. His buddies dismounted, forming a loose semicircle, but they didn't rush in. Sam could almost see the calculations behind the ringleader's eyes. Then, in a low voice dripping with menace, the biker spoke. "You cost me a lot, old man. You think $200 covers it? I can't wait to show you the interest you'll owe." Sam felt a rush of cold dread. But he didn't look away, nor did he yield an inch. He swallowed once and squared his shoulders. "Stay away from me," Sam said evenly, "or you're going to regret it." The biker chuckled, a sinister sound. "We'll see about that." And with that, the Iron Serpents revved their bikes. Before Sam could say anything else, they peeled away from the rest area lot in a roar of engines, dust swirling in their wake. The tension remained in the air, a silent promise that this confrontation was far from over. Sam exhaled slowly. The family of tourists watched him, wide-eyed, and he forced a reassuring nod. But inside, he knew the Iron Serpents weren't going to let this slide. And from here on out, every mile of road could become a battleground. The sun had fully risen, painting the sky a light, endless blue that contrasted with the storm churning inside Sam. The rest area bustled with morning activity. Families with minivans and single truckers wanting coffee all went about their business, eyes flitting nervously toward the man with the military bearing and the fearsome group of bikers that had just roared away. Sam felt their gazes. He inhaled deeply, forcing himself to slow his breathing. He needed to move. Staying put was an invitation for the Iron Serpents to regroup and corner him later. But he also needed a plan. He couldn't outrun them indefinitely, his old truck wouldn't manage a high-speed pursuit, and his leg couldn't endure a foot chase if they forced him off the road. On the other hand, confronting them head-on seemed foolish. A single ex-soldier, no matter how well-trained, was at a disadvantage against an entire biker gang. Especially a gang that probably had guns of their own, Sam mused. He climbed out of the pickup, scanning the rest area for a safe spot to collect his thoughts. The building that housed the bathrooms and vending machines offered a small patch of shade. On one side, he saw a picnic table. He strolled toward it, each step mindful of the ache in his leg. He sat down with a grunt, massaging the tight muscles. No matter how many times he told himself he could still handle combat if necessary, his body reminded him of his limits. For a moment, he considered calling the police. Then a bitter taste rose in his mouth as he recalled how slow local authorities could be to act against well-connected biker clubs. He had no proof of wrongdoing beyond harassment and threats, and local law enforcement might not leap to the defense of a drifter, especially if the Iron Serpents had any local influence. Sam needed a better strategy. A beep from his phone drew his attention. A text message from an unknown number. "Thank you, Sam. It's Lenny. I owe you my life." Sam felt a tug of relief that the kid was okay. He tapped out a quick reply. "No worries, but be careful. If anything happens, let me know." He clicked the phone screen off and resumed his brooding. He remembered that one of the reasons he'd been driving west was to look into that ranch job. Perhaps it was time to push on, get to the ranch, and see if it offered a temporary refuge. Wide open spaces, a place to bunk, maybe a sense of community he'd been missing. The Iron Serpents might not follow him that far, or if they did, perhaps Sam could rally some local support. Yet, he knew they'd be angry. They had singled him out as an outsider who'd disrespected them. Gangs like that typically demanded retribution. He rose from the picnic table and made his way back to the truck. A quick glance at the tires told him they were still intact. The bikers hadn't slashed them in the short window of time. Small blessings. He slid into the driver's seat, buckled up, and turned the key. The old engine sputtered but caught. He pulled out of the rest area, taking a route west. The highway rolled on, mile after mile, farmland and ranches passing by in a blur of green and brown. He kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see the familiar glare of motorcycle headlights. But the road stayed empty. By noon, Sam felt a small measure of relief. Maybe they backed off. Or maybe they were biding their time. He spotted a gas station with a single pump. Pulling in, Sam filled up. Money was tight, but he needed fuel. Inside, a weary attendant barely glanced at him. Sam grabbed a bottle of water, and as he paid, he caught sight of a local newspaper on the rack. Its headline read, "Iron Serpents Influence Grows, Citizens Concerned." Sam's heart pounded. He grabbed one copy, setting it on the counter. The attendant raised an eyebrow. "You from around here?" the attendant asked, scanning the paper's barcode. "No," Sam replied, "but I had a run-in with some bikers from that group." The attendant pursed his lips. "Yeah, they've been making noise lately. The cops can't or won't touch them. Be careful on the roads." Sam nodded, paying for the water and paper, then left. Back at the truck, he stood by the driver's door, flipping through the newspaper. It had a half-page article about the Iron Serpents' rumored involvement in narcotics. Local business owners complained about intimidation tactics. but official statements from the sheriff's department were vague, insufficient evidence, ongoing investigation, and so on. Sam grimaced. It confirmed his suspicion that going to the cops wouldn't do much good. He climbed back into his pickup, heart heavy. As he drove on, a plan began to coalesce, albeit in rough form. Maybe he couldn't hide forever. But if he found stable ground, a friendly place, he might be able to stand his ground if the serpents followed him. He didn't relish the idea of violence, yet the vow he'd made to himself in the army came back to him, never again be at the mercy of another's cruelty. The afternoon rolled along. The scenery changed to gentle hills, and Sam pulled off at a small town called Willow Creek. According to the directions from the ranch advertisement, he was close. He decided to pick up some supplies, wanting to arrive prepared. He parked along the main street, 2 rows of quaint shops, a bakery, a hardware store, and a diner. The sidewalks were mostly empty under the blazing sun. In the hardware store, Sam grabbed a few essentials: rope, duct tape, a heavy flashlight, and some spare parts for his truck. He tried to look unassuming, but an older man behind the counter struck up conversation. "Getting ready for some serious chores?" the man asked, glancing at the rope and flashlight. Sam offered a polite smile. "Something like that. Heard there's a ranch nearby hiring." "That'd be Oakwood Ranch, I bet," the man said. "They're always looking for help. Good folks. You plan on staying long?" "If it works out," Sam replied. The man nodded thoughtfully. "They got bunkhouses for ranch hands. You'll be comfortable." Sam paid for his items, noticing how the older man eyed his limp curiously but said nothing. Outside, the sun hung low, painting the horizon in a warm glow. He glanced at his phone, barely any signal. He punched in the address from the job advertisement. The ranch was another 10 miles down a gravel road away from the main highway, possibly safer from prying eyes. He climbed back into the pickup and followed the directions. The town melted away behind him, replaced by open fields, an occasional tree line, and rolling meadows. Eventually, he spotted a wooden sign that read Oakwood Ranch at the head of a long dirt driveway flanked by rustic wooden fences. Sam turned in. Horses grazed in a nearby pasture, and a large barn stood at the far end. A 2-story house rose beyond that, with a wraparound porch and a scattering of outbuildings. Sam parked near the main house and climbed out, taking in the sounds of nature, the distant lowing of cattle, the rustle of wind through tall grass. It felt peaceful. He wasn't sure how long that peace would last if the Iron Serpents came looking, but he'd take it for now. A middle-aged woman in a straw had emerged from the barn, a pitchfork in hand. She eyed Sam warily at first, but her expression softened when she saw he was no threat. "Help you," she called. Sam gave a slight wave. "I'm here about the ranch hand position." "Name's Sam Hawkins." She lowered the pitchfork, nodding. "I'm Clara Oakwood. My husband, Bill, is out checking the fence line. Come on in, we'll talk." He followed her toward the house. Up close, he noticed the lines of worry on her face. As they stepped onto the porch, she motioned for him to sit on a wooden bench. She took the rocking chair, setting her hat aside. "We've been short-staffed for months," Clara said. "Hard work, but I figure you know that if you're here." Sam nodded. "I can handle my share. I've done ranch work before. Grew up on a small farm in Texas. Spent time in the army, too." Her gaze flickered to his leg. "Army, huh? Thank you for your service." Sam nodded politely and used to the sentiment. She continued, "We provide a modest wage and room and board. We expect you to handle feeding the animals, maintaining fences, and assisting with harvest when we cut hay. Bill's been doing a lot himself, but it's too much for just 1 or 2 people." Before Sam could reply, he heard the sound of an engine. A battered ATV came into view around the side of the barn, driven by a wiry man in a sweat-stained shirt, Bill Oakwood, presumably. He pulled up, dust billowing around him, and climbed off. "Clara," he called. "We got a couple fence posts that need replacing tomorrow." He noticed Sam and walked over, extending a calloused hand. "Bill Oakwood." Sam shook it. "Sam Hawkins. I'm here about the job." Bill nodded, giving Sam an assessing look. "You familiar with ranch work?" Sam gave a short version of his background, skipping the details of his military experiences. Bill listened, then looked to Clara. They exchanged a glance, some unspoken communication. Finally, Bill turned back. "We can give you a trial week. We got a bunkhouse out back. If it works out, we'll talk about something longer." Sam felt relief wash through him. Appreciate it. Clara offered a smile. It's nice to have an extra hand. We can show you the bunkhouse, get you settled. Sam retrieved his duffel bag and the couple led him behind the house to a small, single-story building. 2 bedrooms, a shared kitchen space, and a tiny living area. It was rustic but clean, with a cot in the corner. Usually we keep 2 ranch hands, but the last fella left abruptly, Bill said, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. Couldn't deal with the long hours. Sam nodded, placing his bag on the cot. I'm fine with long hours. Bill studied him a moment. Good. We start at sunrise. For now, rest up. Dinner's in about an hour, and Clara makes a mean stew. They left him alone to get settled. Sam took a moment to test out the cot, thin mattress, but better than sleeping in his truck. The quiet calm at the ranch was a salve for his frayed nerves. Still, he couldn't entirely relax. His thoughts kept drifting back to the Iron Serpents. Would they track him here? Or would they assume he'd kept driving? He glanced out the small window where the fields stretched far, the setting sun casting long shadows across the grass. The ranch was peaceful, yes, but also isolated. If trouble came, it would come fast, and help wouldn't be quick to arrive. He exhaled, trying to quell the anxiety. For now, all he could do was settle into the routine and keep his guard up. As promised, dinner was a hearty stew served at the big wooden table inside the main house's kitchen. Bill and Clara prayed before the meal, a simple moment of thanks. Sam quietly bowed his head out of respect, though he'd long since fallen out with formal religion after seeing the atrocities of war. They chatted idly about ranch life, moving cattle, fixing fences, feeding the horses. Sam listened with genuine interest, appreciating the normalcy of it all. Later, after helping wash dishes, he drifted back to the bunkhouse. Under the glow of a single lamp, he pulled out the .45 from its black box, double-checking the safety and storing it in the bedside drawer. A small comfort in case the night held surprises. Then he grabbed the local newspaper from his bag, flipping to the article on the Iron Serpents. Reading the accounts of intimidation tactics and local fear only confirmed what he already knew: they were a looming threat. Sleep came fitfully with the typical swirl of nightmares. Mortar rounds, muzzle flashes, the cry of a wounded comrade. He jolted awake, heart hammering. The bunkhouse was still, the clock reading 2:35 a.m. Sam ran a hand over his face, eventually getting up to fetch a glass of water. He stepped outside, greeted by a canopy of stars, the air cool and filled with the chirping of crickets. He paced a bit, letting the night sky calm him. Then he heard a sound, a low rumble on the breeze. He stiffened, straining to discern if it was a distant car or something else. For a tense moment, he stood, listening. The noise faded, replaced only by the hush of night. Probably just a truck passing on the main road. Telling himself to relax, he finally returned to the bunkhouse and drifted off, the silence providing a fragile shield against his worries. When dawn arrived, Sam was already awake, dressed in work clothes. Bill was outside, saddling a quarter horse. "Morning," Sam greeted, suppressing a yawn. Bill nodded. "Morning. Got a lot to do. Start by feeding the horses in the main barn, then check the chicken coop. We need eggs collected. I'll ride out to the west fence line." "Got it," Sam said. He spent the next few hours learning the ranch's routine. Clara explained the feeding schedule, how to distribute hay bales and sweet feed to the horses, which ones needed special care. Sam's limp slowed him slightly, but he managed. The physical labor was strenuous, but it provided a welcome distraction. He found a rhythm in the tasks, hauling buckets of water, scooping feed. The dusty smell of hay and the clucking of chickens reminded him of simpler times. Back when he was a boy, chasing the barn cat around his family's farm in Texas. Sweat rolled down his brow, but he worked on, determined to prove his worth. By midday, he was sore but satisfied with his progress. He sat near the barn's open doors, munching on a sandwich Clara had given him. She joined him briefly, sipping iced tea, her gaze drifting toward the horizon. "Storm clouds might roll in tonight," she said. "Hope we don't get hail." Sam followed her line of sight. Darker clouds were indeed forming. The wind picked up, rustling the fields. "We'll tie down what we can," he replied. She nodded, then hesitated. "Not to pry, Sam, but you seem, well, you look over your shoulder a lot. Something bothering you?" Sam paused, weighing how much to share. Finally, he decided on partial honesty. "I had a run-in with some bikers a day ago. They might be upset with me." Clara's brows furrowed. The Iron Serpents? They've been in these parts. A few times we've had folks come by, warning us to be mindful. You think they'd come here? Sam shrugged. I hope not, but it's possible they might try to track me down. A flicker of concern crossed her features. She inhaled slowly. All right? Well, if they do, Bill and I can stand up for ourselves. Don't want trouble, but we won't turn away a good hand just because you've got some baggage. Just be careful. Sam felt gratitude bloom in his chest. Thanks. I appreciate that. They finished lunch and Sam returned to mending a broken fence panel near the front pasture. He worked methodically, measuring each plank, hammering nails. The drone of cicadas and the gentle snorting of the horses lulled him into a sense of cautious peace. As afternoon wore on, Bill returned from riding the fence line, cursing the approaching storm. They hurried to secure loose tarps and equipment. By evening, thunder rumbled and lightning flickered across the sky. Rain began to pour, drenching the ranch in a cleansing downpour. Sam helped Bill guide the horses into the barn for shelter. By the time the worst of the storm passed, the ranch was swathed in darkness. Muddy puddles dotted the yard. Sam, soaked to the bone, trudged back to the bunkhouse. He stripped off the wet clothes, dried off, and changed into sweats. Just as he was about to lay down, a faint buzzing from his phone caught his attention. He grabbed it, noticing a missed call from an unknown number. His heart rate quickened. He redialed, bracing himself for Lenny or worse, some ominous message. The line rang twice before a shaky voice answered. Hello? Lenny? Sam asked. What's wrong? It's them, Lenny whispered, fear threading his words. They came to my place asking about you. I said I didn't know where you were, but they didn't believe me. Sam gripped the phone tighter. When was this? Earlier today. They left, but... Sam, I'm scared. My mom can't deal with this. We don't have anywhere else to go. Sam's breath came in short bursts. All right? Listen, just keep your head down. Call me if they show up again. And if you really feel threatened, call the cops even if they can't do much. Sometimes just the presence of law enforcement can deter them. Lenny's voice cracked. I'm sorry, Sam. I never meant to bring you into this. Don't. You didn't drag me in. I made my choice. They exchanged a few more words before hanging up. Sam stared at the phone, mind racing. The Iron Serpents were actively hunting him. A cold anger stirred in his gut, mingled with a sense of responsibility. If they harassed Lenny's family again, Sam would be forced to intervene somehow. Days passed without incident, though the tension under Sam's skin never went away. He slipped into the ranch routine, rising before dawn, doing chores, helping Bill with repairs. Clara occasionally asked how he was faring, and Sam managed a reassuring nod each time, though part of him was waiting for the roar of motorcycle engines to break the stillness. One late afternoon, Bill and Sam loaded up a pickup with fence posts and tools, driving to the far end of the property. A barbed wire fence had sagged, likely from the recent storm. It was a remote corner near a wooded area that served as a natural boundary. They parked, hopped out, and got to work. Clouds drifted overhead, the sun dipping low in the sky. They were deep in the task when Sam heard it, the distant rumble of engines. He paused, hammer mid-swing, heart tightening. Bill noticed. What is it? Bill asked. Sam held up a hand. Engines. Could be anything, but... I have a bad feeling. They both listened. The noise seemed to grow louder, echoing off the rolling hills. Bill scowled, setting his jaw. Let's finish this quick and get back to the house. Sam resumed hammering the fence post, his ears tuned to the sound. Sure enough, it drew closer, then faded, only to return. It was disorienting, as if the riders were circling the perimeter. After a tense 10 minutes, the engines seemed to fade away entirely, replaced by the wind in the trees. When they finally wrapped up, the sun was nearly gone. Darkness settled rapidly. They hopped into the truck. Bill drove carefully along the muddy ranch road back toward the house. The headlights carved a path through the gloom, illuminating tall grass and fences. Sam kept glancing over his shoulder. Every shadow made him jumpy, every shape in the distance could be a lurking biker. When they arrived at the main yard, Clara stood on the porch, arms crossed. Did you hear that noise? She asked. Bill nodded grimly. Motorcycles, I'd wager. She glanced at Sam, worry etched in her face. Guess you were right about them not giving up. You think they were scoping the place out? Sam ran a hand through his hair, tension clenching his muscles. "Probably. Trying to see if I'm here." Bill let out a low growl of frustration. "Damn pests. Let me tell you something, Sam. We don't allow bullies to threaten our ranch. Or our friends." Sam gave a thin smile. "I appreciate your support, but I don't want to drag you into my fight." Clara stepped off the porch, resting a hand on Bill's shoulder. "Listen, Sam. We're not turning a blind eye. We've had rustlers, poachers, all kinds over the years. We're used to dealing with trouble in our own ways." Sam felt a stab of gratitude, but also concern. A local ranch family wouldn't stand much of a chance if the Iron Serpents came in force, armed with guns and looking for blood. The ranch was big, isolated. A sudden raid at night could be devastating. He couldn't ask Bill and Clara to risk their lives. "Any chance you can reason with them?" Clara asked softly. Sam sighed. "They're not exactly the reasonable type. I paid them off once, but they want control. A show of force. It's not about the money anymore." The three of them stood there, the crickets droning in the humid night. Lightning bugs blinked across the fields, oblivious to the undercurrent of fear and anger. Finally, Bill heaved a sigh. "We'll keep watch. I'll fetch the shotgun from the closet, just in case." "Clara, you lock up the house?" "Sam, I guess you do what you gotta do." Sam nodded, jaw set. He recalled the old soldier's creed, never leave your post unguarded. Here, the ranch was his post, at least for now. He knew better than to think a single shotgun would deter a gang, but it was something. Possibly enough to scare them off if they came snooping. That night, Sam barely slept. He took up a position by the window in the bunkhouse, .45 within reach. The moon was half hidden by clouds casting silver stripes across the yard. Every rustle of wine through the trees, every creak of the barn made him tense. By 2 a.m. he was exhausted from adrenaline alone, but still too wired to rest. Yet, dawn arrived without a single sign of the bikers returning. Sam finally let himself exhale, albeit shakily. He couldn't know if they were gone or simply planning something else. Bill's expression over breakfast told him the man was equally uneasy. After the meal, Sam busied himself repairing a broken latch on the barn door, thoughts swirling. If the Iron Serpents were circling, they might try to strike when Sam was alone or away from the main house. Later that morning, Sam offered to ride out to check the west pasture for any storm damage. Bill was organizing the tack room and Clara had errands in town, so Sam saddled a horse named Rusty. He felt a familiar comfort in the routine of riding, recalling his youth on a Texas farm. Rusty was a calm gelding with a patient gait, carrying Sam through the tall grass and rolling slopes. The far west pasture bordered a small creek. Sam dismounted, tying Rusty to a fence post. He walked the line, testing each post's stability, checking for breaks in the wire. Birds fluttered overhead and the creek babbled softly. He paused by a large oak, enjoying the shade, the breeze kissing his sweat-damp skin. That was when he heard it, a twig snapping. His pulse jolted. Slowly, Sam turned. Emerging from behind a copse of trees were two men, both wearing leather vests emblazoned with the Iron Serpents' skull and crossbones insignia. One was short but stocky, the other tall and gangly with a sneer etched into his face. Sam's heart pounded. He measured the distance to Rusty. The horse was about 20 yards away. The .45 was at his hip, hidden under his jacket. His hands lingered near his belt, ready. "Afternoon," the tall one said, voice carrying an undercurrent of malice. Sam swallowed, staying calm. "You lost." The short biker smirked, hooking his thumbs in his vest pockets. "Looking for a friend. Named Sam Hawkins. Heard he might be working at this ranch." Sam's eyes flicked between them, adrenaline surging. "Well, I don't know him," he lied smoothly. "You might want to head on back to the main road." The tall one chuckled. "We got reason to believe you do know him. Matter of fact, I think you're him. The blonde boss sends his regards." Sam's heart hammered, but he forced his voice steady. "If you start something here, you won't like the ending." The two men exchanged an amused glance. The short one spoke up, "We're just here to chat. Let you know the Iron Serpents don't appreciate meddlers. Especially ones who think they can buy off debts without consequences." Sam flexed his fingers. "If you want the money back, I don't have it." "Oh, it ain't about the money," the tall biker sneered. "It's about respect." A swirl of tension choked the warm air. Sam could practically taste the violence looming. He scanned their positions. Both stood about 15 feet away, partially fanned out. They were positioning themselves for a pincer move. They know what they're doing, Sam thought. They've done this before. The short biker shifted, sliding his hand inside his vest. Sam's instincts flared. He whipped the .45 out in a smooth motion, leveling it at the man's chest. "Don't," Sam warned, voice low. A flicker of hesitation crossed the biker's face, but only for an instant. Then his expression hardened and he pulled out a short-barreled revolver. The tall one reached behind his back, presumably for another weapon. Sam's throat tightened, but his training kicked in. He fired once, a shot cracking the air, hitting the ground near the short biker's feet, deliberately missing. The horse neighed in alarm, tugging at its reins. "Next one won't miss," Sam growled, stepping sideways to keep them both in his line of sight. The tall biker froze, hand halfway to drawing his own gun. A silent standoff crackled in the stillness. Sam's heart pounded, but his aim stayed steady. This was it, a hair's breadth from carnage. Finally, the short biker let out a low laugh, though his eyes were tight with anger. Slowly, he lowered the revolver. The tall one did the same, raising his empty hands. "Easy, man. You got us. We'll back off." Sam kept the .45 trained on them. "Drop the guns." They exchanged a look. The short biker reluctantly placed the revolver on the ground. The tall one pulled out a small handgun, setting it down. Sam's mind whirled. Could he detain them, call the cops? But they'd likely slip free if the local sheriff was compromised or too slow. "You deliver a message to your boss," Sam said, voice clipped. "Leave me alone. Leave the ranch alone. If you come at me again, I won't hesitate." He motioned with the gun for them to back away. The bikers stepped back, their expressions twisting with fury and humiliation. Then they turned and marched off, presumably back toward where they'd hidden their bikes. Sam waited, gun raised, until they were out of sight. Only then did he exhale a trembling breath, lowering the .45. He retrieved the bikers' weapons just to keep them from grabbing them again and tucked them in his belt. Heart pounding, he ran to Rusty, calming the skittish horse. This is escalating, he thought. The Iron Serpents would want payback for being disarmed in the field. If that was a scouting party, the main group couldn't be far behind. Sam mounted Rusty and spurred him into a canter toward the ranch house, mind racing with how he'd tell Bill and Clara. They needed to prepare defenses, a plan, maybe reinforcements if any of Bill's neighbors could help. Because one thing was crystal clear, the Iron Serpents weren't going to stop until they got Sam, preferably broken and bleeding. The time for half measures was over. Sam Hawkins, the soldier who had hoped for a quiet life, found himself once again on the brink of war. Sam clenched his teeth as he guided Rusty into a gallop across the open field, heart pounding with adrenaline. His thighs burned from the sudden sprint, but the urgency eclipsed any discomfort. In his belt were 2 confiscated handguns, still warm from the late summer heat. The Iron Serpents might be regrouping at that very moment. The ranch came into view, the barn's faded red walls, the house's white siding, and the bunkhouse perched off to one side. It was a picturesque scene against the gold-tinged horizon, a scene that now felt distressingly vulnerable. Sam spotted Bill and Clara outside by the corral as if they'd been waiting for him. Bill's shoulders were tense, a coil of rope in his hands, eyes scanning the property line. Clara's expression was anxious, her brow creased. Sam reined Rusty in near the corral, dismounting and tying the horse to the fence. Without ceremony, he held out the 2 pistols. "They were on foot in the west pasture," he said, breathing heavily. "Tried to corner me. I took these off them after a near standoff." Bill's jaw tightened. He set the rope aside and took the pistols gingerly, examining them. "Well, damn," he muttered. "We knew this was coming, but it's different seeing the hardware." Clara crossed her arms, glancing at the tree line beyond. "Did they say anything?" "Mostly threats," Sam replied. "They mentioned their boss. Blonde goatee, the one who first approached me in the diner. I suspect he's calling the shots. And now they've made it clear they know I'm here." Bill exhaled and handed the pistols back to Sam. "Keep them if you want. Maybe throw them in the barn. No sense returning them." He paused, then rubbed a palm over his chin. "We need to prepare. The 2 you ran into might just be scouts." Sam nodded grimly. "I don't want you in the crosshairs, Bill, Clara. If I need to leave so they follow me instead." Bill shook his head firmly. "Now hold on. That's not how we do things here. Folks who work on this ranch are under our roof, our protection. We might not be a private army, but we can hold our own. A lump of gratitude rose in Sam's throat. He gazed at Clara, who nodded in agreement with her husband. "We stand by our people," she said, conviction in her voice. Sam closed his eyes briefly, torn between not wanting to endanger them and being relieved he wouldn't have to face the Iron Serpents alone. Finally, he reopened them and asked, "So what's the plan?" Bill turned to study the ranch yard. "We can't guard every inch of the property, it's too big. But we can keep a watchful eye on key areas: the house, the barn, the bunkhouse, and the corral. If the gang comes in force, they'll likely target one of these spots. We'll set up a simple perimeter system, motion-activated lights, anything we can rig on short notice." Clara spoke up. "We've got a couple bright floodlights in the garage that Bill usually uses for nighttime caving. Maybe we can aim them at the driveway and the barn entrances." Sam considered the resources. "What about neighbors? Could we call on any of them for backup?" Bill hesitated. "Some are older folks, not exactly itching for a gunfight. We got a couple ranch families down the road who might show up if we call, but I'd rather not ring the alarm bell until we know how big this threat is." Sam understood his reluctance. No one wanted to start a local war. But he also knew that underestimating the Iron Serpents could be deadly. "Let's at least give them a heads up," he said. "They don't have to come running with rifles, but they should be aware of the threat." "All right," Bill agreed. "Clara, maybe you can talk to the Fosters and the Burns. Just keep it subtle. There's been suspicious activity and we're watching closely." Clara nodded. "I can do that." They spent the remaining daylight hours in a flurry of preparation. Bill and Sam rigged the floodlights on poles angled toward the ranch driveway. They tested an older generator in case the power was cut. Sam used some of the rope and duct tape he'd purchased to reinforce gates and doors, ensuring they could be quickly bolted if needed. The entire time, Sam's neck prickled with that old sense of being watched, flashbacks to Afghanistan's dusty watchtowers scanning for insurgents along the horizon. By sunset, they were bone-tired but had a semblance of a plan. The barn was locked down. The bunkhouse, though modest, was ready with a barricade option for Sam if needed. Bill retrieved a pump-action shotgun from his closet and showed Sam the shells. "Buckshot. Good for close range," he said. Sam gave an approving nod. Might be the only persuasion they understand if they rush the property. Clara heated leftover stew for dinner, the three of them eating in relative silence. Thunderheads gathered once more at the edge of the sky, but they didn't promise a major storm, just a smattering of lightning. After dinner, Bill set up a watch rotation of sorts. "I'll stay up till around midnight, keep an eye on the yard from the front porch. Sam, you try to get some rest, then switch with me." Sam agreed, though he doubted he'd manage much sleep with adrenaline coursing through him. Clara insisted on taking a shift too, but Bill politely refused, saying, "I need you rested in case this drags on a while." Reluctantly, she relented, though Sam could see worry etched into every line of her face. Back in the bunkhouse, Sam cleaned his .45 and the two confiscated handguns, checking each part with practiced efficiency. It had been a while since he'd handled so many firearms, but muscle memory took over. In the corner, he set a small row of shotgun shells Bill had given him, just in case the older man needed a quick reload. The hours crawled by. Finally, near midnight, Sam forced himself to lie down, if only to rest his eyes. After drifting in a light doze, he jolted awake at 2 a.m. The bunkhouse lamp flickered softly in the darkness. Rubbing sleep from his eyes, Sam stood, strapped on his gun belt, and headed outside to relieve Bill. The ranch yard was silent except for the chorus of crickets. A moonless sky made everything pitch black, but the newly positioned floodlights cast pale cones of illumination around the driveway and barn. Bill was seated on a wooden chair at the edge of the porch, shotgun across his lap. He gave Sam a small nod. "Quiet so far," Bill whispered. "You up?" Sam nodded. "I'm good. You get some sleep." Bill grunted as he rose from the chair, stiff from hours of stillness. "Call me if you see or hear anything." Sam took the seat, the old wood creaking beneath him. He cradled the shotgun across his thighs, scanning the yard. The night air was thick and sweat clung to his temples. Every subtle rustle of wind in the nearby trees set his nerves alight. Time dragged. He kept his breathing even, eyes darting between the edge of the driveway, the barn, and the open pasture beyond. Now and again, he'd glance at the bunkhouse and the second floor of the main house, where a faint light glowed behind a curtain, likely Clara pacing, unable to rest. A half hour slipped by. Then an hour. Sam began to wonder if the bikers were biding their time or if maybe, just maybe, the confrontation wouldn't happen tonight. His eyelids grew heavy, though his pulse still thrummed with readiness. Suddenly, a soft flicker of light in the distance caught his attention, like a small glow moving across the far fence line. Sam tensed, gripping the shotgun. The glow disappeared, then reappeared. Headlights? Or maybe a flashlight? He set the shotgun aside, grabbed his .45, and crept down the porch steps, mindful not to make noise. He crossed the yard, every sense on high alert. The floodlights illuminated the immediate area, but that glow was far beyond them, near the tree line. It didn't look like a car, the movement was too erratic. For a moment, Sam considered waking Bill and Clara, but curiosity and caution told him to scout first. If it was just a lost hiker or a neighbor checking a fence, no need to ring the alarm. He moved along the side of the barn, using the building as cover, breath shallow in his chest. The ranch gate leading out to the west pasture was locked, but from behind the barn he could see the faint glow more clearly, bobbing in the dark. He heard no engines, no footsteps. The silence felt ominous. Could it be the bikers trying to see if we're awake? Sam paused, heart hammering. 1,000 times in combat, he'd felt that same tension, knowing the enemy might be just out of sight. He decided to approach. Edging around the barn, he followed a narrow path between equipment sheds, the .45 at his side. The grass dampened his footsteps. Then, abruptly, the light winked out. Sam halted, scanning the darkness. His eyes strained, but there was nothing, no movement, no silhouettes. A creeping dread slid up his spine. It was definitely a light, he thought, not my imagination. He stepped forward and his boot brushed something in the grass, a tripwire. Instinct shrieked at him. He lurched back just as a chain rattled. He heard a swift whack and a small metal contraption swung from behind a post, missing him by inches. Startled, he stumbled. Some kind of improvised booby trap? Before he could fully process it, he heard a sound behind him, a rustle, then the click of a safety switching off. Sam spun, raising his weapon, but the muzzle of a gun was already pressed to the back of his head. A quiet, mocking voice whispered, "Gotcha, hero." Sam's skin went cold. How did they get this close? "Put it down," the voice ordered, pressing the gun tighter to Sam's skull. Adrenaline surged, but Sam knew if he moved now, he'd likely be shot before he could swing around. Reluctantly, he eased the .45 down, setting it in the grass. "Kick it away," came the command. He obeyed, cursing himself for leaving the vantage point of the porch alone. The person behind him gave a low chuckle, then called out softly, "We got him." Out of the shadows stepped two more figures, bikers with the Iron Serpents patch glinting in the faint floodlight glow. One was the tall, lanky man from earlier. The other, broad-shouldered with a shaved head and a menacing grin, hefted a baseball bat. A second voice hissed, "Let's do this quick. Don't want the ranchers seeing." Sam's mind raced. If he shouted for help, the bikers might pull the trigger. But if he stayed silent, they'd drag him away, and that would be the end. The muzzle of the gun at his head wavered for a split second. An opening? Sam thought. A desperate plan formed. He took a sudden stride sideways, hooking his foot behind the gunman's ankle and twisting. The man's startled grunt was all Sam needed. He dropped low, pivoting, and aimed a powerful elbow toward the gunman's ribs. A shot rang out, deafening in the still night. The bullet whistled past Sam's shoulder, missing him by mere inches. The muzzle flash lit up the gloom. Heart pounding, Sam drove his elbow into the man's ribcage again, felt the biker stagger. Then the broad-shouldered man rushed forward, baseball bat swinging. Sam ducked, the bat whooshing overhead. He seized the moment to slam his shoulder into the man's torso, sending him stumbling back. At that moment, the tall biker lunged, brandishing a knife. Sam spun, adrenaline surging, lashing out with a side kick that caught the tall one's wrist. The knife flew free, clattering in the grass. Another shot cracked the air, this time from the gunman who'd recovered. Sam felt a searing pain along his left arm, a graze that tore through fabric and skin. He hissed, ignoring the burn. One thought roared in his mind, "I need to get out of here. They'll swarm me." He dropped to a crouch, snatched up his .45 from the grass. In one fluid motion, he fired a shot toward the gunman's feet, forcing him to leap back. The flash gave Sam a split second to see the men's positions. He rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding another swing from the baseball bat. They were disorganized, but they had guns and Sam was outnumbered. He raised his .45 again, bracing it with his injured arm, determined not to show weakness. "Stop," he shouted, voice echoing off the barn walls. "You want to die here?" The broad-shouldered man hesitated for a fraction of a second, bat halfway raised. The tall biker spat, "You messed with the wrong club." Shouts came from the direction of the house. Bill, Clara, maybe both, alerted by the gunfire. Floodlights swung wildly as someone inside flicked them on and off, trying to see where the shots were coming from. "Cops will be here soon." Sam bluffed, hoping the bikers believed it. "If you don't back off, you'll all go down for attempted murder." The men exchanged glances, uncertain. This wasn't going how they planned. Before they could decide, Bill's voice roared from the porch, "Sam? Sam, where are you?" A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the group. The bikers cursed, turning their faces away. Sam used the distraction to backpedal several steps, .45 trained on them. "Go," he barked. "Now." Baseball bat exhaled a ragged breath, stepping back. "We're not done," he warned, voice low. But for now, they knew they'd lost the element of surprise. In a flash of movement, the gunman lobbed a small canister to the ground, a cheap smoke bomb or flare. It burst, hissing a cloud of acrid smoke that billowed around them. Sam coughed, eyes burning. A second later, he heard the scrambling of boots, then the rev of engines. They had their bikes hidden in the trees, Sam realized. By the time Bill's flashlight pierced the smoke, the Iron Serpents were peeling away, headlights off, vanishing into the darkness. Sam waved a hand in front of his face, blinking tears out of his eyes. Bill rushed over, shotgun in hand, with Clara following behind. "Sam, you okay?" Clara asked, voice trembling. Sam nodded, though he hissed at the pain in his arm. "Just a scratch," he managed, adrenaline masking the worst of it. "What the hell happened?" Bill demanded, eyes darting around the yard, looking for more threats. "They set a trap. Tried to ambush me. I managed to scare them off," Sam said. He pressed a hand to the burning graze. "We need to patch this up." Clara exhaled shakily, hooking an arm through Sam's uninjured one. "Come inside. We'll get the first aid kit." Bill hovered protectively as they led Sam toward the porch. The yard fell silent again, save for the crackling smoke dissipating in the night air. Sam's mind whirled with the near brush of death, the muzzle of that gun pressed to his head. He'd been lucky, experience and reflexes had kept him alive. But how many more times would he get that lucky? Inside the house, Clara set him down at the kitchen table and flicked on a bright overhead light. She retrieved the first aid kit from a cabinet. Bill, shotgun still in hand, peered out each window, ensuring no more bikers lurked. Sam peeled back his torn sleeve, revealing a shallow but bloody groove along his tricep. Clara pursed her lips at the sight, disinfecting the wound and pressing gauze to it. "It's not too deep," she said quietly, though her hands shook. "It'll sting, but you'll heal fine." Bill grunted, pacing the kitchen. That was too close. They were on the property. Next time, they might come with even more men. Sam nodded grimly, letting Clara work. "We should call the sheriff now, at least to make a report." Bill didn't look optimistic. "I'll call him, sure. But the sheriff's spread thin, and I'm not sure how quick he can get out here." "Better than nothing," Sam said. He was aware that if the Iron Serpents wanted a full-scale assault, the sheriff might be outgunned. But at least there'd be an official record. Clara finished bandaging him up, then stepped back, tears brimming in her eyes. "Sam, this is madness. You saved that boy, Lenny, and now they're hunting you like some trophy. God help us." Sam swallowed, guilt tightening his chest. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to bring this on you." Bill shook his head. "You didn't bring it on us. They did. They're the ones threatening decent folks. Still, we have to be realistic. If they come back in numbers, we might not be able to hold them off ourselves." The three of them stood there, the clock on the wall ticking loudly in the aftermath of violence. Sam felt the flush of the adrenaline spike fading, leaving an exhausted heaviness behind. Finally, Bill handed Sam the phone. "You can talk to the sheriff while I check the rest of the property." Sam nodded. He dialed, waiting through several rings before a groggy deputy answered. Sam explained the situation in clipped, urgent tones: trespassing, gunfire, a known outlaw biker gang. The deputy promised to send someone in the morning to take statements, but he didn't sound eager to mount a nighttime rescue party. When Sam hung up, Clara's shoulders sagged. "Morning? We could be in serious danger tonight." Sam rubbed his temple. I know. The best we can do is stay alert and hope they won't try a second attack in the same night. Bill returned, breath slightly ragged. I didn't see any more of them. They're gone for now? Let's lock up and keep watch till dawn. So began the longest night Sam had endured since leaving the army. He and Bill maintained a vigilant watch, switching every few hours, scanning the darkness from the porch. Inside, Clara dozed fitfully on the couch, a shotgun leaning against the wall nearby. Even the horses in the barn were restless, sensing the tension in the air. By first light, no further attacks had materialized. A tired kind of relief settled over the ranch. Sam tried to help feed the animals and repair chores, but the stinging in his bandaged arm forced him to move slowly. Bill urged him to take it easy, though Sam insisted on doing what he could. Around mid-morning, a dusty patrol car rattled up the driveway. An older deputy climbed out, adjusting his belt. Bill greeted him warily, then ushered him inside where Sam and Clara recounted the attack. The deputy scribbled notes, eyebrows raising at mention of the Iron Serpents. We've had a few run-ins with them recently, he admitted, flipping through a small notebook. They've been expanding their territory. That boss, he calls himself Axel, has made his presence known. Sam and Bill exchanged looks. Axel, Sam repeated, remembering the blonde with the goatee. The deputy shrugged. We'll file this report. I'll suggest extra patrols, but realistically, we're short-staffed. If you see or hear anything else, call us. It wasn't much, but it was all they could expect. Sam watched the patrol car leave, feeling a storm of anger, frustration, and determination roil inside him. If the law couldn't protect the ranch, it fell on them to protect themselves. Clara leaned against the porch railing, gazing at the horizon. What now? She asked quietly. We prepare, Sam replied, meeting her gaze. Because if Axel and his crew are determined to settle a score, it's not over. Bill set a hand on Sam's shoulder, nodding grimly. We stand our ground together. In that moment, Sam realized he had an unlikely family here, people willing to defend him. And if he was honest with himself, he felt the old soldier's sense of duty flaring up. He'd protect this ranch as if it were his own post, no matter the odds. Still, in the back of his mind, a single chilling thought echoed. The Iron Serpents are coming, and next time, they won't be sloppy. Morning light slanted across Oakwood Ranch, lending a deceptive serenity to the aftermath of the previous night's attack. Sam Hawkins, his arm bandaged from the bullet graze, helped Bill Oakwood finish securing a broken window latch by the barn. The Iron Serpents had left no visible trace aside from a few footprints in the muddy grass, but their impact was felt in every tense glance and muffled step around the ranch. Clara emerged from the house and approached them, her face drawn. She carried a tray of coffee and battered tin mugs. Bill straightened up, setting his hammer aside. Sam accepted a mug with a nod of thanks, feeling the warmth radiate through his palms. We can't go on like this, Clara murmured. 2 nights of near-sleepless vigilance, we're exhausted. And they'll just keep coming. Bill scrubbed a hand over his chin, the bristles of his day-old beard rasping under his palm. We'll manage, he said, but there was doubt in his voice. Sam sipped the coffee. It tasted bitter but provided much-needed alertness. He remembered how, back in the army, a hot cup of coffee could make the worst day bearable. We might need more help, he said quietly. The sheriff's department won't send a patrol to stand guard, and we can't keep watch 24 hours a day by ourselves. Bill paused, considering. I know a few folks in Willow Creek who might volunteer if they understand the threat. Some old farmhands, a couple veterans from the VFW. They're not law enforcement, but they'd stand with us. Clara's eyes flicked between the 2 men. If we bring them in, we risk the bikers retaliating even harder, maybe burning them out too. Sam exhaled, frustration mounting. True. But if the Serpents think we're isolated and easy prey, that's exactly when they'll strike. We need to send a message back. The ranch isn't helpless, and I'm not alone. Bill pursed his lips, looking pained. Finally, he gave a reluctant nod. We'll go into town this afternoon, talk to folks we trust. We'll see if they can help keep watch at least for a few days. Good, Sam said. Meanwhile, I'll shore up our defenses here. I've learned a few tricks that might help. They parted ways, Clara to the house to phone acquaintances, Bill to check on the horses, and Sam to gather some makeshift materials from the barn and bunkhouse. He scoured the ranch for anything that could be repurposed into an alarm system. He found old lengths of wire, tin cans, spare bells from the tack room. By noon, he'd rigged a simple perimeter alarm around the main entrances. If anyone tried to hop the fence or slip through the gate, they'd jostle a line and rattle the tin can or bell. It wasn't foolproof, but it might buy them a few seconds of warning in a nighttime attack. Every so often, Sam tested his bandaged arm. A twinge of pain flared whenever he lifted more than a few pounds. He silently cursed the Iron Serpents for that close-range ambush and for forcing Bill and Clara to live in fear on their own land. Just after midday, Bill drove his aging pickup off the property, heading toward Willow Creek to recruit help. Clara remained behind to handle chores and greet any neighbors who answered her calls. Sam took the time to phone Lenny. He hadn't heard from the kids since the previous night. Lenny picked up on the third ring, his voice hushed. "Sam? Are you okay?" Sam forced a reassuring tone. "I'm fine. Had a scrape with the serpents, but I'm still standing. I wanted to check in on you. Everything okay at your place?" The kids' breath caught. "They came by again yesterday. I hid, and my aunt told them I left for another state." They didn't believe her, but they left after turning the living room upside down. A pause, then Lenny said, voice trembling, "They keep asking for you." "It's my fault." "Hey," Sam cut in gently, "stop. It's not your fault. They're the ones causing trouble." Lenny sniffed. "Well, I'm sorry anyway. If not for me, you wouldn't be in their crosshairs. I'd still help you again if I had the choice," Sam said, and he meant it. "Stay safe. If it escalates any further, get the cops. Don't try to handle them alone." He ended the call, an ache forming in his chest. The Iron Serpents weren't just a menace to the ranch, they were menacing a sick woman and her teenage son in a rundown trailer. The injustice of it fanned Sam's anger, but he also knew that losing his cool wouldn't solve anything. By late afternoon, Bill returned, the pickup's tires crunching over gravel. Sam and Clara hurried over. From the back seat emerged two men Sam didn't recognize. One was tall, broad-shouldered, with streaks of gray in his hair. The other was shorter, round-faced, with a slight limp. They introduced themselves as Hank Rhodes and Terry Mason, respectively. "Bill told us you folks are in a bind," Hank said, grasping Sam's hand. His handshake was firm. "We might be a bit past our prime, but we won't stand by while a gang of hoodlums terrorize honest folks." Sam offered a weary smile. "We appreciate that. I'm Sam Hawkins. Former Army, but I'm a bit banged up myself." Terry nodded, leaning on a cane. "Hurt my knee in a combined accident years back, but I can still handle a rifle if it comes to it." Clara invited them all in for a quick dinner and planning session. Over stew and cornbread, Bill laid out the situation, the size of the ranch, the vantage points, and the limited help from the sheriff's department. Hank listened intently, then said, "We can set up a rotating patrol. Me and Terry can stay overnight in the bunkhouse or barn if needed. My nephew's also a volunteer firefighter. He might come by tomorrow to help keep watch. That is, if y'all are comfortable with it." Sam glanced at Bill, who nodded. "The more eyes and ears, the better." "That sounds great," Sam said. "The bikers have come around late, between midnight and 3 a.m. They rely on darkness and surprise." Terry rubbed his chin. "We can take shifts on the porch. If we see anything, we'll radio each other. I brought a pair of walkie-talkies from my days in the logging business." They hammered out the details. Bill and Sam would lead the overall watch. Hank and Terry would patrol the perimeter in pairs, armed with whatever rifles or shotguns they had. Clara, though reluctant to take a back seat, agreed to serve as the liaison with the neighbors, keep the coffee hot, and call the sheriff if things got nasty. The mood was somber but resolute. As the sun sank, Hank and Terry fetched their gear from Hank's pickup, a couple of .22 rifles, a 12-gauge shotgun, and camping lanterns. Their presence lent the ranch a sense of communal defense, a small but defiant group standing against the Iron Serpents' intimidation. Night fell swiftly. Sam showed the newcomers the perimeter alarms he'd set, explaining how to reset them if they were tripped accidentally. Bill tested the floodlights, swinging their beams across the yard. Everything was in place. If the serpents came, the Oakwood Ranch would be ready. But readiness did little to quell the gnawing anxiety. Sam took first watch from the porch, joined by Hank. He learned that Hank was a Marine veteran from the Gulf War era, which instantly created a bond of mutual respect. They spoke quietly about old assignments, the desert heat, and the feeling of never quite leaving the war behind. Time crept by. Midnight came and went with no sign of trouble. At 1 a.m., Terry and Bill relieved them, patrolling with flashlights and rifles. Sam lay down inside the bunkhouse, but sleep wouldn't come easy. He rested his bandaged arm across his chest, listening for the slightest sound. By 3 a.m., still nothing. The ranch yard was quiet, illuminated only by moonlight and the occasional sweep of a flashlight. Sam felt both relief and dread. If the serpents didn't strike tonight, perhaps they were gathering in greater force. The unpredictability weighed on everyone's minds. At dawn, the men reconvened at the porch steps. Bags under their eyes, they sipped coffee Clara had brewed. No sign of them, Bill said, forcing a smile. Maybe they've decided not to push their luck. Or they're planning something bigger, Sam countered. He wished he felt as hopeful as Bill looked. Hank shrugged, gaze drifting to the horizon. We'll keep watch as long as you need us to. We can't let bullies scare us off. Terry tapped the porch railing with his cane. They'd have come at night for the element of surprise. If they didn't come, maybe they're lying low. A steady day of chores and tension followed. News spread through Willow Creek, a mixture of rumor and fact. Some townsfolk disapproved, afraid the ranch was stirring up more trouble. Others whispered about forming a local militia to keep the bikers out. That afternoon, Bill's neighbor, Mr. Foster, drove up with his teenage grandson, each volunteering to stand guard. The circle of defenders grew. Sam tried to stay focused on practical tasks, mending fence lines, feeding livestock, while ignoring the throbbing in his bandaged arm. Yet every so often he caught himself staring at the horizon, scanning for dust trails that might signal a column of motorcycles approaching. The sense of an impending showdown was impossible to shake. Just after noon, as Sam was in the barn checking feed supplies, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Unknown number. His pulse quickened. Carefully, he answered. A harsh male voice filled the line. Sam Hawkins. It was unmistakably the blonde leader, Axel. Sam's gut tightened. He stepped away from the barn door, seeking privacy. You've been busy, Axel went on, a mocking tone in his words. Gathering a little posse, are we? Sam gritted his teeth. We're prepared to defend ourselves if you come back. A low chuckle crackled over the connection. You think a few old farmers with shotguns can scare the Iron Serpents? You're playing with fire, hero. Sam's free hand balled into a fist. If you hurt any of these people, you'll regret it. Bold talk from a crippled vet with a bullet hole in his arm, Axel sneered. But I admire your spirit. I'll give you an option, Sam. Meet me alone, and we settle this without turning that ranch into a war zone. You walk away if you're lucky. You refuse, well, we both know what happens then. Sam's heart thudded. A direct invitation. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, Axel said flatly. But your moral compass will force you to come because you won't want your new friends to suffer. And that kid, Lenny? Maybe I'll pay him another visit if you stay holed up. Sam's blood ran cold. The threat was explicit. All right, he said, voice low. Where? An abandoned trucking depot off Route 12, Axel said. You know it. Sam did. He'd passed it a few days before he arrived at Oakwood Ranch, a sprawling, rundown complex with rusted trailers and collapsed sheds. It was half an hour from Willow Creek. When? He asked. Tonight. Sunset. Bring your gun if you want. But come alone. No cops, no cavalry. If I see any sign of them, I make a call and my boys pay a visit to that ranch. You get me. I understand, Sam said, struggling to keep his voice steady. Inside, he felt a roiling mix of anger and dread. Good, Axel said. Don't be late. The line went dead. Sam stood there, phone in hand, staring at the dusty barn floor. Everything in him rebelled at the idea of walking into a trap. But Axel's threat was real. He'd target Bill and Clara or Lenny's family if Sam refused. After a moment of grim silence, Sam slipped the phone into his pocket and headed toward the house. Bill, Clara, Hank, Terry, and the Fosters were all there, working on lunch. Sam's face must have betrayed his unease because Clara set down a jar of preserves and frowned. What is it? Bill asked. Sam relayed the conversation, forcing himself to be succinct. Axel wanted a showdown at the abandoned trucking depot at sunset, or else the gang would unleash havoc on the ranch and on Lenny. Clara paled. He can't be serious. He wants you to just walk into his clutches? Terry smacked his cane on the floor. It's a trick. He'll have men waiting. Bill's features tightened. We can't let you go alone. Sam breathed out ragged. He insisted I come by myself. If he senses any backup, he'll retaliate. And I believe him, he's got enough members to strike at multiple places at once. Hank crossed his arms. You're not thinking of accepting, are you? You know what'll happen. A long silence followed. Sam looked at the faces around him, these people who'd opened their arms to him, who'd protected him even though they barely knew him. If I don't go, he said quietly, he'll punish you or Lenny's family. He's looking for vengeance and intimidation. One person might not matter to him if he can't make an example out of me. But if I stand him up, he'll make examples out of the rest of you. Clara's eyes filled with tears. This is madness. Bill grabbed Sam's shoulder. You might not come back, Sam. Sam swallowed, his throat tight. I know, but I can't stay hidden behind your hospitality waiting for the serpents to strike. If facing Axel gives a chance to end this, I have to try. Hank and Terry looked at one another. Hank finally spoke. If you're going, we can't let you do it alone. Axel might have watchers posted, but we can position ourselves out of sight, a mile away, maybe two. If we hear trouble, we come running. Sam weighed the suggestion. That might be risky. Terry shrugged. So's letting you go in with zero backup. Bill exhaled, face grim. They can't patrol every approach to the depot. If we're careful, we might be able to set up some cover. Let Sam go in alone so Axel sees that, but we'll be close enough to intervene if it goes south. Sam forced a small nod of gratitude. All right, but we have to plan carefully. If the serpents spot you, all bets are off. Clara insisted, I'm coming too. I can drive one of the trucks and stay farther back with a first aid kit. Bill started to argue, but the look in her eyes halted him. She wasn't about to be sidelined when Sam, whom she already considered a friend, was risking his life. Within an hour, they devised a rough plan. Sam would drive his old pickup to the depot, arriving at sunset. Hank, Terry, Bill, and Mr. Foster would follow in another vehicle, stopping at least 2 miles away. Then, using the cover of side roads, they'd approach on foot, armed but hidden among the abandoned buildings. Clara would remain in the truck, parked well out of sight, ready to whisk Sam away if he managed to break free or if the fight turned chaotic. As the day wore on, tension mounted. Sam cleaned and loaded his .45 meticulously, checking each bullet. He kept the 2 confiscated biker handguns as spares, tucking them into the seat compartment in case he needed them. Hank double-checked his rifle while Bill quietly loaded up extra shotgun shells. Everyone understood that the risk was enormous. Sunset neared. Storm clouds gathered in the west, streaking the sky with ominous grays and oranges. Sam recalled an old adage from his days on the farm, red sky at night, shepherd's delight, but if it's laced with black, expect trouble. He could almost taste the tension on the wind. He hugged Clara farewell, her eyes brimming with worry. She managed a small smile. Come back, Sam. I'll do my best, he said softly. He climbed into his pickup, Bill riding shotgun just for the short trip off the ranch. They would split up near the county line. Hank, Terry, and Mr. Foster followed in a battered SUV, headlights off to avoid drawing attention. Sam's stomach knotted. He recalled the countless times he'd driven into hostile territory with no guarantee of returning. This situation felt eerily similar. Finally, they reached a dusty intersection about 6 miles from the abandoned depot. Bill got out. He leaned into the open passenger door, meeting Sam's gaze. We'll be right behind you a couple miles back. If you get the chance, you lead Axel and his men into a spot where we can flank them. Sam gripped Bill's hand. Thank you.